We're going to Uptown Social. We're going to be talking to Keith Benjamin.
This episode is brought to you by Restaurant Systems Pro.
With excitement, allow me to introduce to you today's guest, founding partner and director of operations of Uptown Hospitality Group, which consists of Uptown Social, Bodega, and Share House, Keith Benjamin. Keith, my man, are you feeling unstoppable today?
I'm pumped, man. Dude, this is cool. Thanks for having me, Eric.
Thank you for making time for us. I know you're super busy. Charleston's been great. You're our last interview in Charleston before we hit the road again, and honestly, it's been a terrific time.
Good.
Here.
I'm honored to be a part of it.
Great things to say about you. She's the reason why we're here, and so many other people, when we told them who we were talking to, they're like, oh, yeah,
awesome.
Keith's the man. You're going to love him.
Awesome.
So I'm super excited for today's conversation. I can't wait to dive into who you are and how you got to where you are today and what we're going to learn along the way. But let's get that motivational, inspirational, ball rolling with a success quote or mantra. What do you got for us?
Yeah, you know, it's I'm that type of guy. It's a great question because I grew up an athlete. I played lacrosse at Penn State. I walked on at Penn State.
Wow.
And I was a captain my fifth year. And
how far back are we going? Not to date you.
2001 to 2006.
Penn State is a powerhouse.
Yeah. Currently a top 10 program. Yeah. And back then we made the NCAA tournament twice.
Wow.
It was a phenomenal experience. But you know, as a former collegiate athlete that walked on, I mean, I'm like a guy who watched Rudy growing up. You know what I mean? So inspiration is something that I hold on to, and I try to run my organization as a coach, as a captain, as a leader, and I oftentimes pull inspiration from my life, both as an athlete and as a sports fan. So this past February, I gave all of my operating partners a gift, and that gift was a quote by Vince Lombardi. Also happened to be my senior quote, which I doctored just a tad because Vince Lombardi wasn't speaking to women 50 or so years ago when he was speaking to the Green Bay Packers. I have several female partners. So that quote goes as follows: any person's finest hour, the greatest fulfillment to all he or she holds dear, is that moment when that person works their heart out in a good cause and lies exhausted on the field of battle victorious.
Why does that resonate with you?
It resonates because our industry is full of ruthless competition, and that competition comes from external factors and internal factors, right? And so what I preach to my team is that each and every day, all we can do is show up to work and do our very, very best.
Yeah.
And each day consists of its own battle and its own challenges in our industry. Because you can come into your day, come into your shift, come into to work and say, okay, well, it's all scripted. We're ready to go. But, Eric, this is the restaurant industry, and no script lasts longer than 5 minutes. So I tell them you have to be ready to adapt, and you have to be willing and ready to win the day.
I think that's one of the things I love the most about the restaurant industry. I tend to be a chaotic person.
Sure.
I love chaos. I love improv. I love rolling with the punches, and that's what you get day to day. Like chaos. If you love chaos, the restaurant industry is for you.
Well, there's also you know a component to what we do, which is nightlife, right? And so there's the restaurant industry, and then there's nightlife on top of that. And when you open your doors to 500 plus people, both here and Share House, every Friday, Saturday night, there's no predicting what happens, right?
Right.
So you have your script, you're ready to go, you have your playbook, but the team has to be willing to adapt and has to be ready to win the night. And so that's what that quote means to me.
You mentioned inside and outside challenges or outside competition, inside and outside competition. I'm just curious. What do you mean by that?
Well, I mean, listen, Charleston's a small town, right?
Yep.
And so, we came in here 5 years ago at Uptown Social specifically. We're actually celebrating our 5-year anniversary.
2017.
18.
Okay.
Yeah, April of 18. We opened Bridge Run weekend, 2018, April 5th, and we're celebrating that anniversary this weekend. So it's pretty exciting. But we came in here, and we were the biggest bar restaurant on King Street. An occupancy of 530, 2 floors. We're sitting here on the roof deck, 4 different bars.
It's a beautiful space, by the way.
Thank you. Right off the rip, people were nipping at our heels, and they're like, who are these guys from New York who are coming down here, opening this monster sports bar, restaurant, entertainment complex, and what does this mean for us, right? And so we've had success from day one, and of course the pandemic, presented its own challenges, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point today. But with success comes folks that are seeking that same success, right?
Yeah.
And so the restaurants and bars in a similar space that had been here for a long time started to look at us and say, well, if Uptown is doing it this way, we're going to start kind of shifting our game a little bit and look at how we can compete and also piggyback on that success. And I'm a big believer, Eric, that success breeds success. So the reason we came to Charleston is because we saw the volume here in Charleston, right? And so I love this town. I love the camaraderie of this town. I love the camaraderie of this industry. And it's only the nature of the game that, other restaurants and bars are going to say, well, we want a piece of the action, right? And so I always say, listen, however comfortable and however profitable our business might be, you got to be ready for the next day because somebody's coming after you, right? And they're coming after a piece of the pie. And so we have to continue to innovate and we have to evolve and be creative and challenge ourselves. That's that external competition. The internal competition is just, listen, each and every person in my organization wants to get better and they want to grow, right? And so sometimes, and it's only the nature of the beast, there's going to be folks within the organization that are competing with one another, right? And so I say, listen, guys, push each other, but also inspire each other and pull something that somebody else does really well and make that something that you also want to do really well. So look at that friendly competition and capitalize on that competition and make yourself better.
Great way, man, to get this thing going. Awesome, dude. I love the way we're starting off today's conversation for sure. And where does it make sense to start sharing your story? Because I know that you're from New York, right? That area. How long were you working in the industry before? I'm assuming you graduated right around 2001, 2002.
So 2006. Yeah, okay, and like I said, I was a captain of my lacrosse team at Penn State. Penn State's a Big Ten school. It's also top 5 party school each and every year. I was also in a fraternity because I walked on. I joined a fraternity. I didn't know, if I was going to make the team. I wanted some sort of social experience at Penn State that was organized. And so I was the rush chair. I was the social chair. I was the tailgate chair, which is a thing. And in school at Penn State, I was organizing tailgates for 500 to 1,000 people.
So you're throwing parties.
And with a budget of, $40,000 to $50,000 every fall semester. Wow. So we're pulling on that budget from our social dues, and we're throwing monster tailgates, and I'm buying a pallet of Natty Light every Saturday for 8 Saturdays a year.
So you've been doing this since your freshman year.
Yeah,
college.
Totally. Yeah. And then I'm not. I guess I don't want to brag too much about this in terms of what college athletics looked like 20 years ago, but at the lacrosse house, we were throwing 15 keg parties. I'm sure on every Saturday night.
Lacrosse guys are handsome dudes.
There's something. I mean, there's some sort of screw loose, but I often get asked, what part of your education at Penn State has brought you to where you are today? And I say my overall experience at Penn State is what brought me to where I am today. I studied broadcast journalism. I was a business and American studies minor. I mean, what am I doing now, Eric? I'm running, monster sports bars and restaurants.
Broadcast journalism.
Yeah.
Wow, you want to start a podcast?
I had a show with my buddy Charlie called The Morning Dew.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was really great, man. You would appreciate this. We were every single Tuesday we would get on there and we were streamed. I mean, this is 2005. We were streamed on college on this CTV, right? College Television Network, whatever that was, and it only streamed to the dorm rooms, right? So you either had to dial into the website or you could watch in the dorm rooms, and we would get on there and we would talk sports for 15 minutes, and then we would talk fraternity sorority life for 45 minutes, and we essentially would rate. I'm not proud of this, but we would rate like sorority classes, right? And like how cool they were, what they all looked like, and
What's a sorority class,
like a pledge class,
oh,
right?
Yeah.
Right. And so like we'd get on there and we'd be like, oh, the most fun partiers are Cayo 2003, the prettiest blondes or whatever, and it was like it was such a joke, but it was like we would sit there and laugh and I hope I wouldn't get canceled 20 years ago.
I know.
I was like,
try doing that today.
Right. But it was just like, and we would get out there, like all of our, sorority friends thought it was a total riet, and our buddies in other fraternities. So anyway, we were just having fun, and it was a good time.
Yeah.
And
so you've been doing this for a long time.
I've been doing this for a long time. And so
go ahead.
Yeah. So I graduated, and I was living at my mom's in North Jersey. My parents were divorced, and I was living at my mom's, and I couldn't afford to live in New York City. My dad was a Wall Street guy, so it was always. I lived 20 minutes outside the city growing up.
It's easy to get inside and outside of the city.
It is.
New York, especially, the train system is really great.
It's easy. Yeah.
I take the train into New York a lot. It's
so I says to myself, all right, I'm a broadcast journalism major. My brother worked in the bar industry for 3 or 4 years, and he was making bank. Like New York City bartenders are making $400, $500, $600,000 a night, whatever. Yeah. So I knew I kind of always had that little bit of a safety net if I wanted it. And I took a job working at a sports marketing agency, making $28,000 a year. $28,000 a year in 2006 was not a lot of money. No. It's certainly not a lot of money in 2023, but it wasn't a lot of money in 2006. So I said, I don't want to live at my mom's house. I love my mom, but I don't want to live at her house. How am I going to get into the city? So I picked up a bar back job at a bar called Off the Wagon in 2006. Off the Wagon is an institution on McDougal Street. It opened in 1998, and it's just a killer NYU post-college sports bar, party bar, and it's where my brother worked. And so I got a job bar backing and making, $200-300 every Wednesday night. So I would work my day job.
What was that?
I was an account manager at a sports marketing agency. So our job was actually to throw monster parties around college football spring games.
Okay.
It was pretty cool.
So you're continuing what you were doing throughout college.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And like we had like Fergie booked to play Beaver Stadium, and several country artists to play at University of Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M. I mean, we had some big schools signed up. And I was traveling quite a bit too. But in order to get that apartment in the city,
you need a little extra.
I needed a little extra money. Yeah. So I picked up a bar backing shift every Tuesday or Wednesday night, and I made enough money, saved enough money to move to the city.
Nice.
So at that point, I'm traveling. I'm working Wednesday nights. I'm bar backing. I'm loving it. The energy is unbelievable.
23
Yeah, yeah. I'm living on Wall Street in a 1-bedroom convert
Life
3.
Did not suck.
No, it didn't. It didn't. And fast forward to the spring of 2008, and the shit hit the fan, right? Yeah. The world shut down.
Right.
And
not as bad as 2020.
Not as bad as 2020. Comparatively speaking, that was a walk in the park. But the sports marketing agency folded, and those events that I was working on never actually came to fruition.
Oh, man, bummer.
So I went to my boss at the time, Danny Thomasis, who is we'll talk about in terms of a mentor and a good friend, but Danny was running Off the Wagon at the time, and I went to Danny and I said, "Listen, I need some full-time work while I figure out."
Sounds like he was going on a bender when you say that.
Right. When I figure out what my real job is going to be, right? And he's like, "Well, this is my real job, Keith. So I prefer if you don't ever say that again.
Yeah.
But if you would like some more shifts, we're opening up the Stumble Inn on the Upper East Side." So I said, "Okay, I'll pick up some shifts till I figure out what I want to do next."
Yeah.
And I picked up 3 shifts at the Stumble Inn bartending. And while most of my friends were unemployed living in New York City in 2008, I was walking out with $500, $600, $700 a night.
Wow.
And living the dream.
Did you get a new apartment?
I did. Nice. I moved in with my then girlfriend a couple years later, but it was that money, but more that energy, Eric, that I was like, whoa, this is real.
What do you mean by the energy? Just paint that picture.
Yeah, so there's a chaotic energy, which I think we talked about at the very beginning here, which every restaurant experiences one way or another. Then there's the nightlife industry, and then there's the nightlife industry in New York City. And Eric, I know you interview a lot of restaurateurs. I don't know how many folks primarily work in nightlife, but it's a different beast. It's a different ball game.
Yeah. And city that never sleeps, right?
It's the city that never sleeps. And in 2008, when the world was in a really strange place, people were still going to bars, and they were still drinking, and it kind of holds true even as we got through the pandemic that as chaotic, crazy, otherworldly things go down, people look for that place of respite, right? And they look for that place where they can escape all of the bullshit that they're dealing with, in their lives. And so we opened the Stumble Inn on the Upper East Side, the corner of 76th Street and 2nd Avenue, with a really young demographic living on the Upper East Side to this day. And we were balls to the wall.
Nice.
It was awesome.
So at this point, is it your real job? Or are you still thinking, this is good for now?
So this is 2008. I'm making bank, and my parents say to me, "Keith, don't get complacent." We know it's good money. We get it. My parents met at a bar in Boston.
Yeah.
They understand it. They know what that cash looks like. But they said, don't get complacent. Don't get comfortable. You can't possibly have graduated from Penn State and go into the bar business and think that it's going to be worth anything. I said, okay. I'm not making a commitment anyway.
I mean, it's also a dangerous industry to be involved in. A lot of people get, especially the nightlife, they get sucked into the dark side of the bar industry.
So my dad passed away 3 years ago from ALS, but before that he was sober for 26 years.
Yeah.
So addiction runs deep in my family. My uncle has been sober now, my dad's brother, for 26 years. Alcoholism also runs on my mom's side of the family. This is no stranger to my life.
Yeah, naturally they're worried.
To my family, right? And so, and I went to Penn State, and partying has always been a part of my DNA. So it's like, okay, Keith, can you handle this, right? Can you handle the temptation? Can you handle the late nights? Can you handle all of the extracurriculars that come along with being in this industry? And I will tell you, Eric, that I have never, ever, ever done any sort of hard drugs in my entire life, and I'm proud of that. I've never even smoked a cigarette.
Wow. You don't even like cigars. Poor guy's got the cigar smell on Mike.
Right. It's just not my thing.
Yeah.
Will I pop a gummy every now and again? Sure. I think that it's healthy, and it certainly brings the anxiety of our world down.
You're in good company.
Yeah. So I mean, you're a New Hampshire guy, so you get it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and so I'm proud of that. I'm proud that temptation. From my college lacrosse days straight through my nightlife days, never got the best of me.
So, I mean, is it because it's in the back of your mind that it could be a challenge for you that you kind of tiptoe around, or you limit yourself?
No, I never tiptoed around it. It just was something that never interested me.
Okay.
It was always around
but
me.
You're drinking though, right?
Yes, yeah, I do. I do like to drink, and at times in my life, I drank more than I do now.
Yeah.
I just got back from Vegas for the bar restaurant show.
I was going to ask about that.
I had a couple drinks there. We had a blast. I mean, we had a blast. But it's something that I keep a close eye on.
You gotta be mindful of it.
Yeah, I have 2 little kids, 2 under 2 right now. My wife and I like to go out. We like to have cocktails. We like to drink wine. But then we wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and we take care of our kids, and then I come to work. So,
right, so you mean we're up on your timeline. We're in 2006, 2007. We're going almost 15 years ago. So you've been in this industry for some time.
Yeah.
The Stumble In is a part of the restaurant group that is the mother or father company?
It's the parent company of Uptown Hospitality. It goes by Eat, Drink, and Be Merry, formerly known as NYC Best Bars.
Eat, Drink, and Be Merry?
Eat, Drink, and Be Merry. So the 8 locations in New York are Off the Wagon, Down the Hatch, 3 Sheets Saloon, Hair of the Dog, the Gin Mill, Jake's Dilemma, the Stumble In, and our most recent location, inspired by Uptown Social, is called Downtown Social.
Nice.
Yeah, in the East Village, and it's absolutely crushing it.
So at this point,
yep.
You're saying to yourself, this could be my thing, this could be my career.
Yeah.
Is there a key mentor? Like, how are you evolving as a professional?
So at this point, I was bartending at the Stumble In, and Danny Thomasis was that guy for me. Danny is an old family friend. Danny goes back with my family to the time I'm 8 years old, watching the Giants win the Super Bowl at his dad's house in Short Hills, New Jersey. We go way, way back. My older brother and Danny's brother Greg are best friends growing up. So the Thomasis family is and the Benjamin family are really, really tight. And when Danny says to me,
last names for first names,
yeah,
the first names for last
Thomasis.
names.
Not Thomas, but Thomasis. So Danny, as I'm kind of navigating, in fact, I lived on Danny's couch when I was bartending at Off the Wagon and the Stumble In for a little bit before I moved to the city. And Danny was the guy who I went to, and I said, Danny, can this be real? And what does real look like? And how much money can I really make? Danny had been a partner in these New York bars since his late 20s, and I needed to know from somebody that I trusted that this could be something real and something that could be controlled, because I saw Danny in his late 30s, early 40s. He wasn't married yet, and he was partying pretty hard. He's a big music fan. He's going to see shows and festivals and living this kind of glamorous single life as a older dude. And I wanted to make sure that it was something that somebody that might want a family someday could do. And
what did he say?
Danny said, listen, Keith, I don't know what I'm going to do with my life in terms of getting married and settling down, but it is something you can do if that's something that you want to do. In terms of a real job, this has been my real job for 15 years. Yep. Can it be your real job? Absolutely, but you have to go all in. And I said, okay, I get it. How do I go all in? He said, well, we have a job for you to manage Jake's Dilemma, which is one of our Upper West Side locations right now. And I said, well, I just got comfortable on the Upper East Side. I'm really.
How long are you working for this Upper East?
I was probably there for about 6 months.
6 months. 6 months.
Yeah, and I said,
this is your first bartending job. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And I said, guys, I appreciate it, but I need just a little bit longer to make sure I want this to be my real job.
Yeah.
A, and B, I don't want to go to another bar right now. I'm just getting comfortable building this bar.
Building my regulars.
My regulars on the Upper East Side. And Eric, there's nothing cooler than building business, right? And I preach that to my staff all the time, especially the bartenders, right? And the servers. I say, listen, we're in this small town, Charleston. Yes, we have all these tourists, but generally speaking, we need our locals to love this place, right? And I was 25 years old on the Upper East Side, which is this really cool neighborhood, building it, right? And I said, I want to keep building this. I'm going to pass up this management opportunity right now, but if it comes back to me at the Stumble Inn at some point, I'm in.
You're probably making pretty good money, too.
And I'm making good money, right? And everybody knows once you go from bartending to managing, you take a cut. So anyway, I
want to tap the brakes real quick.
Sure.
So you gave us some clues as to your superpowers building regulars.
Yeah.
Did you train your people how to build regulars when you get like what
I train them to this day.
What does it look like?
It looks like checking your ego at the door, right? Each and every bartender has an ego to some extent. They just do. Everybody has an ego. But I always said when I bartended, and I bartended for 8 years, you go from Clark Kent on one side of the bar to Superman on the other side. And I could sit at that bar in that stool right now, and those 4 pretty girls probably wouldn't look at me. They just wouldn't. It's just, whatever. I'm a 40-year-old dude.
Not everybody's hair cacciatore.
Exactly. But wearing the same exact thing, give me a bar key and put me on that side of the bar, and those 4 girls are going to ask my name right away, not because they want a free drink, but because they want to get to know me a little bit better. And it's pretty cool. It's a position that you can a job, a vocation that you can hold, and if you do it the right way, you can meet a lot of people, whether it's guys, girls, whatever it is. Make friends, meet girlfriends, meet boyfriends, significant others, whatever that looks like. But you can't go back there with a chip on your shoulder. You need to go back there with confidence, but if you go back there with a chip on your shoulder and feeling in any way like you are better than your customer isn't going to come back, because your customer is sitting at that bar, and I preach this to my team all the time, Eric. Our customer has a choice. Our customer can sit in that bar stool, or they can sit in any hundreds of bar stools in New York City, Charleston, Nashville, wherever, right? They choose to spend their money sitting at that bar stool.
Yeah.
And that is a privilege.
Yes.
And that's a privilege. And so I preach to my staff that if they want to earn a living, it's their choice. They can make as much money as they want or as little money as they want. But if it's not a priority for them to build their customers and build their regulars and make that money for themselves and make that money for the business, then they're in the wrong business.
So how much longer did you go working at the Stumble Inn, building these regulars, before you decided to take a management role?
So I'm a Jewish guy, and I went on Birthright, and I don't know if you've heard of the Birthright trip, but the Birthright trip is for anybody of
Israel?
Anybody who is half Jewish or 100% Jewish and lives anywhere in the world, they get an all-expenses-paid trip to Israel.
Damn, what if I marry Jewish?
Right? Go for it. There's actually trips for adults that are not fully funded, but if you marry Jewish, you can take those trips, believe it or not. Go for it. I was 26 years old, and I went on this Birthright trip, and it was a 2-week trip to Israel where I toured around, and it's one of those trips where you come back. I think everybody comes back with some sort of an epiphany, because you learn about one of the oldest places on earth,
right?
And you learn about the persecution, and you learn about the trials and the tribulations of the Jewish people. You learn about challenges. You learn about the way Israel was born in 1948 after the Holocaust. And you get this certain perspective in a place that you simply cannot get anywhere else. And I had a moment. And the moment wasn't, I need to marry Jewish, or I need Jewish kids, or I need to live in Israel. The moment was, do what you feel is right for you, Keith. Do what in your heart of hearts, or in your stomach, or in your head, or block out that external noise, whether it's from mom and dad, from my girlfriend at the time, from buddies that were saying you need to get that real job, and just do what feels right. And I came back from Israel in late August 2009. And I went to Danny, and I said, Danny, I want this to be my real job. But if I want this to be my real job, I can't just be a bar manager. I want to be a bar manager at the Stumble Inn, and he said there's a position available for you here now. But I want to be a partner. You're a partner. You're a partner for 15 years. How do I become a partner? And Danny said, let me introduce you to, I already knew the guys kind of on the surface, but let me introduce you to the founding partners, Mitch Banchik and Michael Ash, who started the group in 1991. And, feel it out with them.
So this is something that I've always had an interest in curiosity around this idea of partnerships. A lot of people, you hear a lot of contradicting advice. Don't get partners. You need partners. I tend to lean in the direction of you need partners.
Yeah.
Because I think if you're going to build something special, you need to attract onto yourself the people that are going to treat it like they own it.
Sure.
And if they do have a piece of the game, like skin in the game, they're going to treat it like they own it. They literally own it. And I don't know how else, especially today, how do you get those people? How do you attract on that top talent?
Yes.
They want skin in the game. They want equity.
That's it. That's the answer right there. Yeah. So Mitch and Michael started this with that format in place when they opened their first bar and second bar in 1991 and 1992 or 93, which was Down the Hatch, and then Moe's Caribbean, which was in 2008 turned into the Stumble Inn. But their formula was, let's bust our ass opening these places and get our friends and friends of friends involved financially so that they want to work as hard as we do, and then we can kind of scale back in terms of working those crazy nights and weekends and have people that can do that work and build their life around this.
Are you willing to talk about how you guys structure that? Because I think this is where people get most caught up.
I am.
They don't know how to structure.
Sure.
It. How do you structure it?
Yeah. So, in 2009, I went and met with Mitch and Michael, and they said, save up your money, and it's not cheap, but we'll make a small percentage available to you within the next couple of years. Just continue to prove yourself. You're now managing. Continue to bartend your butt off.
How do you make percentage available to somebody?
So it's either available based on, for us specifically, it's a pie. So the pie is 100 points.
Yep.
And then
is it 100% of profit?
It's 100% of profit. So you have to buy in. When we open a location, we figure out what the cost is to open the open the store.
Yep.
And we all invest that amount of money into the business, into opening startup cost, and that's the value of the point when you open.
So determining the percentage you put up to get started determines your ongoing percentage of profit.
Correct. Now, the way that changes if somebody wants to cash out based on retirement or what have you, or dilution. And oftentimes throughout the years...
What do you mean dilution?
So that 100 points, we'll say, okay, we have a great up-and-coming partner like Keith Benjamin at the Stumble Inn. We have 100 points taken, nobody's selling, but we really, really want him in. And if he comes in, he can continue to make this business better, and we'll all continue to make the same.
We'll make more money.
We'll make more money. So instead of everybody having, 1 point or 3 points or 5 points of that 100, Keith's going to buy 2 points. And now that goes up to 102 points.
So of that 10, let's say on every dollar you guys put 10 cents away to profit.
Sure.
Right? Just for simple enough.
Yep.
You would get 0.02% of that 10%.
Correct.
And would you get a salary on top of that?
Yes.
Cool.
Yep. So all partners take a salary. It's not huge.
Got it.
It's enough to make ends meet, really, for us, and a little bit more than that.
Do you mind me asking what 0.20% looks like?
Yeah, it really all depends on the bar.
How much gross you're doing.
What the gross looks like. But I mean, I'll give you a range based on what a point costs.
I mean, in New York City, like I'm sure that's not horrible, right?
No, but it all depends, right? Are you opening a bar in 1998 or are you opening a bar in 2023, right? So a point back then could have been $5K. Right. And a point, these days, based on the size and scale of your location, could be 30, 40 grand.
Right.
It's and all of our investment comes from internal dollars, meaning we don't take, to this point, we don't take outside investors. We haven't taken bank loans. We have taken on no debt. So if Keith wants 5% of the business, 10% of the business, Keith has to find a way to get that money. And I got news for you, Eric. I don't have that money. I mean, it's just, in order to fork over, 6 figures, north of 6 figures worth of money to invest in these places, you need to go to mom, dad, aunt, uncle, grandma, grandpa, friends of grandma, grandpa, friends of grandma. You're going to everybody.
In my mind, like you get like your piece, right? Your 1% or your 0.05%.
Yep.
And then as the company evolves, as people move on,
Sure.
you can start absorbing a little bit more. So you just get like take what you can now,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And then as the company evolves, as people move on, as people get pushed out,
Yep.
if the things aren't working.
And that happens.
Yeah.
That happens, yeah.
You just start where you can.
Right. And so for me in 2011, that number was $60,000.
Wow.
For 2%. And
salary on top of that?
And well, that's what I had to invest.
Oh, got it.
So that's what I
invested. 60,000.
So I had to come up with $60K. Funny enough, I had like $6,000 put away for my bar mitzvah. And then I said to myself, where am I going to come up with the rest?
There.
Right. So, they gave me about a year to figure it out, right? Yeah. And so I bartended and I put everything away. Wow. I put everything away. I saved and I saved and I saved.
You moved back in with mom?
I didn't, but I didn't move out. Like I said, I moved in with my girlfriend.
Yeah.
We had a tiny little apartment in New York City. Rent was a couple $1,000.
Yeah.
It wasn't a monumental expense for me in terms of rent and cost of living, but I was living pretty tight. And when you empty your bank account at 28 years old with everything you've ever saved, you better believe in what you're putting your money into. Yeah. And I saw the history with these guys, and I said, I believe in this.
So how have you evolved? So you could, in 2000, so almost 10 years later, you were working as a partner in New York City. It took you 10 years to be able to go do your own thing.
Sure.
Is that safe to say, or did you do anything in New York?
All right.
Is
so
there more to the story.
Stumble in 2%, kicking ass, really doing well there. And Mitch and Michael approached me and they said, we just signed a lease on the Lower East Side for a bar that we believe to be in the best location in New York City, corner of Orchard and Stanton Street. And we want you to co-operate that space.
How long after this was it? After becoming a partner? A year later?
A year.
So you finally, so a year after they say, hey, wait, a year from when they give you the opportunity?
A year. So 2011, I become a partner in January 1, 2011.
It took you a year to get the capital.
The capital. And then call it mid 2011, they sign a lease.
Okay.
And they say, we want you to go open Hair of the Dog on the Lower East Side. And we want you to invest as the senior partner there.
Nice.
Co-senior partner there.
You're finally, I got I invest. Now you start all over again.
Eric, I'm 40 years old. I've now been reinvesting for 12 years. It's a constant cycle, right?
But that's the idea.
That's the idea.
I mean, when I'm a fan of profit first. I don't know if you know that.
I did not.
So the idea behind a profit first is every dollar you make, you take 10% and you put it into a savings account.
Sure.
And a high interest savings account. And you don't touch that money unless you're buying an asset.
Yep.
So the whole idea is you start building wealth.
Sure.
So that's essentially what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're taking a percentage of your income, you're putting it away, and you're putting it towards buying more.
That's what I've done. That's what I've done.
Right?
That's what I've done for 12 years, and I just bought. I didn't own anything in my life. I kid you not. I didn't own anything in my life until I bought a house 6 months ago.
Congratulations.
Thank you. It was awesome. It felt so great.
So how are you evolving as a professional during this time? Clearly you're kicking ass because they're offering you opportunities.
Sure.
They're giving you the best location in the company.
Yep.
How are you changing? How are you evolving?
So we go open Hair of the Dog on the Lower East Side. Now the Lower East Side is not the Upper East Side. The Upper East Side is this tight little neighborhood where locals pretty much frequent that bar. The Lower East Side draws what we call in the New York area the bridge and tunnel crowd, right? So people come from Long Island. They come from New Jersey. They come from Westchester, New York.
Holland Tunnel?
Holland Tunnel, Lincoln Tunnel, GW, Tappan Zee Bridge. I mean, people come.
I say it the Holland Inn. That's my what
there
I
look
forward whenever I go
there
to
you go.
the city.
So people come from all over the metropolitan area to visit a destination bar like Hair of the Dog.
Got it.
Hair of the Dog, right off the rip, when we opened in October of 2012, just started crushing it. Started crushing it. I was bartending still. I was doing three nights a week behind the bar. I was almost married to my now ex-wife. I'll get to that at some point, but I've since remarried and I have 2 kids, and it's amazing. But I was, and we could talk about the effects of the industry certainly on relationships.
I'm sure it'll come out.
It's a real thing
For sure.
But yeah, we were doing great, and I was living on the Lower East Side. I was walking to work 5 minutes, walking to work every day, up until I bought this house in 2022, which was just 6 months ago. I had walked to work for the better part of 10 years.
Wow.
Eric, when I tell you walking to work is the greatest thing in the world, not having to commute. Right now, my commute is a max 20 minutes in a car. But
Depending on traffic getting over the bridge.
Yeah, it's Eric, it's so great walking to work.
I
It's
bet.
such a level of stress taken off your day. Anyway, I digress.
I mean, it's a good habit too. Anyway.
Yeah.
So
Great.
yeah, get into some of the details.
Yeah, so Hair of the Dog was crushing it right away, and I said, you know what? We can't run this place like it's a neighborhood bar. I need to run it like it's an entertainment hub, right? And right off the rip, I started to kind of look around. Granted, this is before I don't have my phone. I thought I did. But this is before everybody had a phone in their hands, right? So I think it was probably still BlackBerry time, maybe just on the cusp of post-flip phone era.
Yeah.
Everybody was kind of starting to get their iPhone, but Instagram wasn't around yet, and it was Facebook, and people were kind of scrolling a little bit on Facebook. But my inspiration wasn't coming from what I saw on social media. We'll get to this. It was coming from what I saw in real life.
What were you seeing?
I was seeing parties around New York that were being thrown in a better way than I was throwing my party at Hair of
What
the
was
Dog.
better about the way these parties were being thrown?
The level of entertainment, specifically, that these other bars and nightclubs were bringing in was just head and shoulders above what we were doing at Hair of the Dog. We were bringing in what I like to call the iPad or iTunes DJ, where we would put somebody that looked like you or me in a booth that had a cool Mac in the DJ booth and just set
a
up
taste of music
and just throw a playlist on.
Yeah.
You know,
that's
and
what you were doing.
that's what we were doing, and it was fine. I mean, you know, we could put on Shout, and we could put on Piano Man, and we could put on Brown Eyed Girl, and whatever the top 40 was at the time. But it just wasn't being mixed, and it wasn't being produced, and it wasn't being
Delivered.
It wasn't being delivered, and there was no energy in the booth. So it would literally be like you sitting in front of your computer, just like this, for 8 hours, right? And so I'd go to these other bars, and I'd see these DJs in front of these tables, like we're sitting at right now, dancing, right? And mixing music, right? Like DJs do.
Yeah.
And I'm like, shit, I need to do that. Right? And so I went to a buddy of mine at a bar, which I really respect, in Brooklyn, called the Freehold. And the guys that opened the Freehold are 2 former employees of ours named Bryce and Brad. And Bryce and Brad left the 13th Step at the time to open the Freehold, and they were bringing this high-end entertainment into the Freehold. So I went there and I saw what they were doing, and I said, can you guys put me in touch with your DJ group? They said, sure, of course. And at the time, Eric, we were paying our DJs $17 an hour. You can't get a real DJ for $17 an hour. So we had to up the game, and we were then paying $50 to $60 an hour for a real DJ.
Did a DJ become a partner?
The DJ, those DJs did not become partners, but those guys brought that next level of entertainment.
Yeah.
And so,
Well, you bring up a point. It reminds me of Nickel City. The owner of that place is escaping my mind. Have you heard of Nickel City in Austin, Texas?
I haven't.
But they're known for throwing amazing events. And
Sure.
when I was talking to the owner, he said, "I'm not a bar owner. I'm an event
Producer.
Right? Producer.
Yeah.
Well, I can't remember the words he
Yeah.
used. And that's the mindset. Is every night is a party. There's an event. There's a promotion.
Yep.
There's a collaboration.
Yep.
You're bringing somebody who has influence in, and you're giving them a space to bring their crowd with them. Right.
So that's where we are today.
Yeah.
That's where Uptown Social, Share House, and Bodega are in 2023, and that is how our company is growing. Rewind to 2012, 13, 14. We just weren't doing it that way, and I was self-teaching myself as to how to take our concept to the next level. So I'm now in my young 30s. My marriage is kind of on the rocks. It was
now in your timeline, the story. This is going back to what, 2000?
This is 2014, 15.
Got it.
Yep. Had already been married here in Charleston, South Carolina, destination wedding.
Oh. Was that your first taste of Charleston?
It was my first taste of Charleston. Did
you fall in love back then?
I did.
Nice.
I did. And I fell in love with King Street. And so it's 2014, 2015. I'm talking to Mitch. I'm talking to Michael, who have since become mentors, and saying, what's next for me, guys? What's going on here? And they're like, we're always looking for the next deal. It just hasn't come to fruition yet. But, just hold tight. Things are going well for you at Hair of the Dog. You have some points at the Stumble Inn. You now have points at Hair of the Dog.
Nice.
You have points.
Compounding.
I had a very small percentage at the 13th Step, which is now Downtown Social, and a small percentage at Down the Hatch. Once again, just this vicious cycle of reinvesting and reinvesting and reinvesting. And I says to myself, how do I make it big? Right? If I'm sitting here and waiting for these guys to tell me what's next, and then I just get kind of a small to decent piece, how am I going to really grow? And how am I going to get better? And how am I going to spread my wings? And we had meeting after meeting, Eric, about rising rents, rising minimum wage, rising costs all over the board. And our profits in New York were just incrementally going down, right? Just based on all sorts of factors, right? So I'm talking to my therapist, which I think probably everybody has at this point. And if you don't, I'm a huge proponent of mental health.
I've never had a therapist, but as you start to scale a business, you need someone to talk to.
It's really an incredible thing, and I know we're not here to necessarily talk about this. Maybe we will, but mental health is something that just gets swept under the rug in our society,
for sure,
and specifically in our industry where we are just working crazy hours, weekends, and having trouble being present for our family and our significant other. Therapy is just tremendously helpful. So anyway, I'm talking to my therapist at the time, going through some marital issues, and just kind of telling her that I felt a bit stagnant in New York, and told her that I was starting to think about perhaps at some point opening a place in Charleston, South Carolina. But I mean, how could that really be real? I mean, I'm not from Charleston. I know nothing about Charleston. I'm a Jewish kid from the Northeast. I went to Penn State. I've lived in New York City for 9-10 years at that point. How would I ever have the balls to just rip off the Band-Aid and move away? Right? And she said, well, Keith, you're a confident guy. You seem to have a fairly good grasp on what's going on in the bar restaurant world. Don't sell yourself short. Make that dream a reality if in fact that's something you want to do.
Right.
So I approach my very best friend in the world, Michael Jacober. Michael Jacober and I went to summer camp together in 1991 in Casco, Maine. Michael's mother, Karen, and my mother went to summer camp together in New Hampshire 30 years before that.
Where in New Hampshire? I need to know.
I don't know. I'll get that answer. I'll get that answer. But I knew you'd appreciate that. So Mike and I become instant best friends when we're 8 years old, and on visiting day, our moms walk in, and my mom says Kiki, and she says Robin, and it was wild. Anyway, we were best friends in camp. He's a Providence, Rhode Island guy. I'm a New Jersey guy. We lost touch in high school, and then enter my freshman year at Penn State. He got recruited to play lacrosse, and I was a walk-on, and we ended up back together. So Michael ends up opening his own grilled cheese truck in New York City, called Morris Grilled Cheese.
Okay.
Yeah, and then he ends up starting a restaurant called Gladys, named after his grandmother, where he's doing jerk Caribbean food in the middle of Crown Heights, Brooklyn. Another Jewish guy, but great story. He goes down to Jamaica and he hires a guide not to take him to a single resort, but to take him to any mom and pop kitchen in Jamaica to teach him how to make Caribbean food for the Caribbean demographic in Crown Heights. Pretty cool story.
That's cool.
So he masters it, and his restaurant's just crushing. Nice. So anyway, he builds up a portfolio, sells his portfolio right before the pandemic.
Smart.
Right?
Lucky.
Who would have known? But has always just been that person for me.
Yeah.
Like a brother. He officiated my first wedding and was the best man at my second wedding. I mean, we're best friends. So anyway, I go to Mike and I say he's still operating his businesses in 2015, and I say, Mike, I want to do this. What do you think? And he said, well, how about this, Keith? He goes, pitch it to Mitch and Michael. Do your research. Dig deep. You know they're going to want to see it. And if they don't want to do it, I'll do it with you. And that's all I needed to hear. I just needed to
Backup
hear.
plan or
I just
approval?
needed to hear that A, I had support from somebody outside of my therapist, and B, that if for whatever reason the guys that I had been working with for the previous 7 years didn't want to make this aggressive move south, that I had somebody that would do it. So, sure enough, I go to Michael and Mitch in this was 2016 at this point, and I say, guys, I have an idea, and it's going to sound crazy to you, but I want to move to Charleston, South Carolina, and I want to open a bar.
What was the look on their face when you said this?
They said exactly what I thought they would say. Have you done any research?
And
I
you
said,
had at this point.
I have.
Nice.
And they said, well, what have you done? And I just sent them a deck.
Take us through that process of what that research looks like. But first, let's take a break to thank our sponsors, and we'll
Sure.
be right back to
Great.
unpackage what that looks like.
We have to interrupt today's video to let you know that right now, Restaurant Systems Pro is offering a no strings attached 60-day trial that will help you improve your systems, increase your profit, and find better work-life balance. All you have to do is click the link below.
Got it.
All right, we're back, and you just approached your partners.
Yep.
And you said, "Hey, I want to open. I want to do something in Charleston."
Yep.
Did you do the research? Was
I
it
did the
came out-
research. So I took my buddy's advice, Mike, and I had put together a deck, and I had demographics. I had the number of people moving to Charleston every day. I had the number of people visiting Charleston every year. I had the tourist versus the local.
What do those numbers
breakdown?
look like?
Well, I mean, this was 2016. There were 50 new people moving to Charleston daily.
Wow. 50 daily?
50 daily, and the greater Charleston area, and 6 million tourists a year. We're now in 2023 at close to 9 million tourists a year.
Jesus.
I don't know what the number's at in terms of people that are moving here, but I will tell you during the pandemic, it was a mass exodus from the Northeast. People were just moving here by the droves.
I did notice there's a crap ton of New Yorkers
Yeah.
in Charleston.
Yeah, crap ton.
I always say Florida is southern New England.
Florida, southern New England, and southern Jewish New York and New Jersey. But Charleston is just that place that people
Southern Manhattan.
Yeah, just looking for like a super approachable place to live.
Yeah.
Albeit quite expensive now.
Right.
It's just become such a place in such high demand. And I can get to what we were charging for a drink in 2018 versus what we're charging 5 years later based on a number of factors. But anyway, rewind. So I'd done the demographic research and the population research. And Eric, it was the coolest thing. I pitched them on this on a Wednesday, and on a Friday, Mitch calls me, and he's on an airplane, and he says, "Hey Keith, I'm going to Charlotte. I think Charlotte's pretty close to Charleston," he says. And I'm like, well, it's about 3 hours away. He says, "I'm going to Charlotte to visit my sister, and I'm only going for a night. And I'd like to go down to Charleston based on your research. If you can set me up with a broker, I'll check out Charleston over the weekend, and I'll go meet the broker on Saturday." And I said, "Mitch, with all due respect," and I don't know if you guys bleep things out on here.
We know our target audience, so I know who I'm talking to.
Go fuck yourself, buddy. You're not going anywhere by yourself.
Yeah.
I said I'm getting on an airplane and meeting you there if you're amenable
Yeah.
to taking a look at Charleston. He said, "Giddy up, let's go." So we met in Charleston on Saturday. This was Friday.
Nice.
And I was in Charleston on Saturday, and we do what we do best, and we went on a bar crawl.
Nice.
And we went around Charleston that night, and the last time I had been here was my first wedding, and I hadn't been in like 5 years.
Before we start talking about
Yeah,
what
4
you
years.
guys discovered when you came to Charleston, I kind of want to. I think I cut you short. You're talking about how many people were moving to Charleston year over year.
Yeah.
The percentage of tourism that was here.
Sure.
You were continuing on that train of thought.
Yeah, so it's a college town, which is
Yeah,
super helpful, both for the fact that there's 11,500 kids that go to the College of Charleston. Now, granted, they're not all 21, but
Yeah.
but a good chunk of them are. There's the Citadel. I don't know exactly what the enrollment is there, and they don't go out as much.
Yeah.
There's Charleston Southern, which is right around the corner as well, and then there's Clemson, 3-4 hours away, and University of South Carolina an hour and a half away. And so, much like I talked about Bridge and Tunnel, if somebody wants to change it up a little bit and they live an hour outside of town or an hour and a half, or they have a spring weekend or whatever it is,
Beach day.
Hey, let's shoot to Charleston
Yeah.
for the weekend, right?
Yeah.
And so those are all really important factors for us.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact that with a college demographic comes, their parents, right?
Yeah.
And so when their parents come to town, they're looking to entertain
Yeah.
their kids and their kids' friends. And just like I did when I was at Penn State, my parents were taking out my teammates and their parents were taking me out, right? And so Eric, it was a remarkable exercise in figuring out how to check all the boxes, and I just felt like we checked them.
Yeah.
I felt like before we got on the airplane, we checked the boxes.
But I think the other underlying message here, and it's a great advice from your mentor, Danny, before you approach them, do your homework.
Do your homework.
Eliminate the no's.
Yep.
Find out what they could possibly say no to,
Yep.
and then take that no away with an answer.
Right. And so we arrived in Charleston on a Saturday night in April 2016, and as we're sitting here on this gorgeous April day, I mean, I walked onto campus at Penn State my junior year, and I didn't want to go there. That wasn't my first choice. And I walked on a 75-degree May. It was Memorial Day weekend, and it was a May day, and it was the most gorgeous day. And I said, this is where I want to go to college. And I had the same experience, Eric, that day coming down here to look to go on this bar crawl to do R&D. It was a day like this. And I'm like, how is this not the greatest place on earth?
Right.
I mean, how is it not?
I mean, King Street's pretty special.
King Street's special, and
Yeah.
Charleston's special, and it has this history, and it has this nostalgia, and it has this charm, right?
It does.
It's just
It's a coastal town.
It's a coastal town, and I get off the plane, and I'm here for the first time on a non-wedding related excursion, if you will, and I'm like, this is it.
Yeah.
This is it. This is Camelot.
Yeah.
Right? How do I figure out how to get this shit done?
So
Right?
how'd you guys settle on this location?
So we do the bar crawl, and on a Saturday night, and Mitch and I are blown away, Eric, by the lines. I mean, line after line after line after line. We couldn't get a reservation to eat anywhere.
And I mean, just from me personally walking King Street today,
Yeah,
there's a lot of spots, but they're small.
they're small.
This is the biggest space I've been. And I haven't been in a lot of
Yeah.
spaces, but
Yeah.
is it one of the bigger bars?
So it's the biggest, easily the biggest. It's almost 10,000 square feet. So coming from New York, we said we need a space the size of Hair of the Dog to do Hair of the Dog things, throw a huge party on
Yeah.
King Street.
Events, yeah.
We quickly realized that due to the fact that we're in the low country and there's significant flood risk all over the place, there's no basements here in Charleston. So when you eliminate basements,
Does that have anything to do with why there's no gas stations?
no, I
was trying to find.
I don't
one earlier
believe
today. I was
so.
like, because there's so much water.
No, I don't believe
Anyway.
that's the case.
Just curious. Keep going.
But we'll talk to the infrastructure folks about that. So yeah, there's no basements, and we're like, holy shit. Well, what are we gonna do? How are we gonna build? Where are we gonna put our kitchen? Where are we gonna put our bathrooms? Where are we gonna put our storage? Right. So we're like, okay, there goes the Hair of the Dog footprint, because we had a basement. We have a basement, Hair of the Dog, and 2,500 usable square feet for the floor plan. So we said, well, we need a bigger place. And so after that Saturday night in which we saw lines all over the place and just the most wonderful group of people up and down King Street that were super welcoming and answering all of our questions and, partying really hard. We took it fairly easy on Sunday. We experienced Sunday Fun Day the best that we possibly could, which, as we're drinking out of Sunday Fun Day cups right now, we set up appointments with a broker on Monday. I don't need to really delve into what we didn't like about many of these places, but I'll just tell you they were too small, right? They were just too small.
Is that just a sheer volume thing where you need to hit a certain amount to validate coming in?
Absolutely.
Okay. What is that threshold for you?
The first thing that we learned is that there were lines everywhere because the fire code is pretty strict.
Yeah.
Right? And so with the fire code being, really strict, and we absolutely respect, what the fire marshal and building department and everybody, I have a great relationship with the local city government here in Charleston. And, we learned that we just needed a big space to get the amount of bodies in, right? And so we didn't know what that math looked like back in 2016, but we knew we needed more space. Yeah. So we saw a couple of smaller spots, and we said there's no way that 100 or 200 people will just make those. They just won't make the numbers work. And the rents on King Street, while they're not New York City,
I was curious about that.
They're significant, right?
Yeah.
And so we're up and down King Street, and we knew we had to be on King Street. We knew we had to be on the main drag. And we walk into this building, and when I tell you, Eric, that this building was a dilapidated mess that should have been bulldozed many years before we walked in, I would be not exaggerating in the least. It was really in a scary
The building we're
condition.
sitting at today.
What's that?
This building that we're at.
Yeah,
today.
and and when we break, I'll show you some pictures.
Okay.
And maybe you share them as part of what we're talking about,
Yeah.
because it was a place that we walked in, and when we talked about our initial investment cost, right, to get a place open, Mitch and I looked at each other and we said, "Oh God, Keith, Mitch, this is going to cost us a lot of money if we can do this, if we want to do this." And the other thing that we needed to know when we came down here is that they're dating back to, I believe, 2015, maybe slightly before that, there's been a moratorium on late night liquor licenses in Charleston. The point being that the folks around here, while they do support nightlife and the growth, they have not wanted to turn it into a Bourbon Street, which I applaud them for. And so in order to secure one of those licenses, a license has to be grandfathered into a specific building, if
Got
you
it.
will. Unless you can somehow work a zoning exemption, and that's really difficult. So this was one of a very small handful of buildings that had a grandfathered license dating back to when it was called LJ's. And LJ's was like an old soul food joint on King Street. And the guy who owned LJ's is a guy named LJ Hugie. LJ Hugie still owns the building next to Uptown Social,
Okay.
behind Uptown Social.
Got it.
And his family is the coolest family ever. They're old school Charleston, African American. We had LJ's nephews and cousins working in our kitchen when we opened Uptown Social. They brought their family, Roper, so it's the Hugie Roper family. The Roper family brought their fried chicken recipe to Uptown Social. We did a soul food night in which we paid tribute to the Hugie and Roper family early on.
I love that.
And it was so cool. These guys were so proud of the recipe, and they've since gifted it to us. We don't have fried chicken on the menu. It's not something that we do here, but we've done some pop-ups with fried chicken,
Nice.
and it's just like we're so honored to have that family recipe
Yeah,
from
cool. You pay
LJ.
homage to it.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, Eric, Charleston, the history here is so rich, and there's been people that have been here for hundreds of years, right? People and their families, right? And to see LJ's family, who's been in Charleston for as long as he can tell us those stories,
Right.
and then hear everything that he has to tell us about how special this place is.
Yeah.
It's truly unique.
So you get the space, right?
Yeah.
The space becomes yours. Any lessons learned during this time, challenges overcame, things that you can pay forward to our listeners, and how to not do what you did if you did anything wrong, but also what did you do right?
So respect the fear, right? The fear in opening a place is very real. The fear in opening a place in a town that you've never ever lived in is really real.
Yeah.
And the fear in opening a place in a town that you've never been in that's 10,000 square feet is terrifying.
Right.
I respected that fear dating back to those days, but I immediately compartmentalized that fear. And it was the best thing that I ever did.
How do you compartmentalize fear?
Because the way to do that, Eric, is by having a unique sense of confidence. Without confidence, you can't do that.
Yeah.
Without confidence, you simply can't take risks or take chances.
Is this where the therapist comes in?
Totally. Totally.
Yeah.
But it's just a fact, right?
Yeah.
And so I've never lacked confidence. It's what allowed me to walk on to the lacrosse team at Penn State. It's what allowed me to
Walk into a bar as a bartender
Yeah.
with no experience?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
All of those things. And so if you're going to take a shot as an entrepreneur, you need confidence.
Yeah.
You simply cannot be paralyzed by that fear.
Right.
But you have to know what's on the line,
Yeah.
right? It's that vicious cycle of investing and reinvesting and reinvesting. And now here we are in Charleston, South Carolina, with a crazy rent on King Street with 10,000 square feet and build-out costs in the millions, right? I'm not borrowing money from a bank. I'm having to come up with that money myself again.
Yeah.
And this time,
Well, you also, you're not doing it alone either, which I
No.
think is really cool and worth pointing out. You have the restaurant group behind you.
Yep.
Like you have the cool thing about having partners is you don't have to do it alone. You can lean
Right.
on the strength of other people.
Right.
And you have access to partners who have opened how many bars?
I mean, listen, we have between New York, Chicago, and Charleston, we now have 15 locations.
Yeah, so you have access to this team, which
Yep.
is one of the cool things about partnering with other people.
Yep.
And I mean, just doing a little bit of research to prepare for today's conversation. When you opened with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 partners, and the 2 partners. Are they included in that list?
So that's not even including Michael and Mitch, and then the infrastructure and partners that we have in New York.
Access to the tools and resources and just the human equity.
It's incomparable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's worth noting.
Yep.
So I'm not gonna lie. When I saw that you had a parent company in the back of my mind, I was like, oh, you probably got a check for a few $1 million to make this happen.
Well, and it, by the way, it wasn't. We all collectively wrote checks.
Yeah.
You know,
and that's the cool thing about the model that you
right,
put down earlier.
right. So I wasn't like, hey guys, can you all back me on this? It was, hey, back my vision.
Yeah.
But we're all in this together.
Buy in, 'cause
we're
this
all
is
in
gonna
this
be
together.
fun.
And when I tell you, I called people that I would have never dreamt of calling for anything to borrow money.
Yeah.
You know, and
How much do you need to raise?
this was a multi-million-dollar build. Yeah.
Was your estimate accurate?
Nope. No,
Never is.
we were about $1.5 million.
That's pretty
short.
good.
Yeah.
When you're talking multi-million,
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty good. I mean, usually people are like halfway there.
And what I will tell you is that since then we have put probably between AV upgrades and building upgrades, we put another $1 million back into the facility
Constantly
in the last 5 years.
Start where you can and
Yeah.
constantly improve.
Yeah, and I'm a strong believer, Eric, that it's a what have you done for me lately industry. And so if we sat here and this place looked like it did 5 years ago with no attention to detail and no upkeep, this place wouldn't be as popular.
What do you mean by what have you done for me lately? Like, have you improved?
Exactly.
So,
right.
like, who's saying
you,
that? The guest?
the guest?
Yeah.
The competition?
Yeah.
The employee, right? Because if you work at a shitty bar that's downtrodden and isn't kept up, you don't have pride in that facility, right?
Yeah.
And if you don't have pride in the facility, you don't have pride in the business.
Yeah.
And if you don't have pride in the business, how are you going to speak about it in the light that you need to speak about that?
So
business?
when you got the space, you bring together the team.
Yep.
And you're saying you're buying into my vision.
Yep.
What was your vision?
So the other crazy thing, Eric, was that I convinced several people to move here with me from New York, right? And so
I mean, you really had to twist their arm, huh?
Right.
I mean,
anyone
once
who wants
they
to come
came down
who
here,
wants to
they're
come to
probably
Charleston and
Yeah.
open a bar on King Street with me, they're like, sign me up, right? It actually wasn't a tough sell. It was really, really cool, bringing my people down here with me. The vision, Eric, was a monster entertainment complex on Upper King Street to the likes that nobody had ever seen here, with phenomenal food, but specifically pizza.
Yeah. Why pizza?
I'm a New York, New Jersey guy. I grew up in North Jersey, going to a place called Star Tavern. Star Tavern is an institution in North Jersey, owned by a guy named Gary. Gary is a Greek guy. His father opened the Star Tavern in Orange, New Jersey, which is kind of a downtrodden area of North Jersey. And Gary busted his butt with his dad to open what I consider to be the best pizzeria in the United States of America.
Roberto's?
Star Tavern.
Star Tavern. So
Star Tavern.
I'm thinking of your
Falco.
Yeah.
Right.
He'll come
So I said, I want to bring that style bar pie to Charleston. So Danny Thomasis is as big of a pizza nerd as I am,
Yeah.
and Danny had oftentimes rented out all of DeFara's in Midwood, Brooklyn. And Danny had these private pizza parties, and at one point he met a guy through a pizza party named Anthony Falco. And Danny is really excited at this point about our Charleston concept, but even more excited that we want to make pizza there.
Right.
And he puts us in touch with Falco. And so I tell Falco that he had just left Roberta's, and I tell Falco that we want to replicate the Star Tavern style bar pie and bring that to Charleston. Can we do that? Or is the myth about the water being what it needs to be real, and can we not replicate any pizza in the South? And he said, Keith, I will debunk that myth right now and tell you that I can make any style pizza anywhere on the planet. And I intend to do that through my new job as an international pizza consultant. And I would love for you to be my first client, and we could do this together in Charleston, South Carolina.
Nice.
And I'm like, well, that sounds pretty darn cool.
I think it's worth mentioning he has since blown up and
Blown
been very successful
up.
And you helped make that happen. And I think that's another cool thing about just the ethos of what of your organization is there's no pride here.
Yeah.
You're willing to go, okay, we're not the best at this, so let's go find somebody who's better and swallow our pride and ask for help. Like, there's no shame in asking for help.
That's the ethos.
Yeah.
That's what we've done, and we've since done that when we opened Bodega. We had no idea how to make a cup of coffee, believe it or not.
Right.
You know, and now we own a coffee. You were just there for lunch, right?
Yeah.
We own a coffee shop.
Got the breakfast sandwich for lunch, though. I'm a sucker for a breakfast
Right.
sandwich.
We have a traditional
That Low Country.
Yeah, that's
homemade sausage, pork sausage with gravy, man.
It's real deal.
I wore it all over my face, but it was worth it. I got a little on my sweatshirt.
It's great. It's great.
So good.
But yeah, we brought in a coffee consultant because what do I know about coffee, right?
Yeah.
So that's totally our ethos, and that's what we've done, and that's what we're really proud of. I'm really, really good at throwing parties. I'm really good at it. Am I a traditional restaurant guy? Am I going to serve you from the left and not the right or the right? I don't even know. I don't even know what that means.
I think a lot of that shit's pretentious.
Right,
anyway.
right.
I mean, if it's right for your concept,
Sure.
perfect, but it's not going to... It depends on what you're trying to be.
Right.
I don't think I'd ever open a place like that either. It's not me.
It's not me, and it's not who we pretend to be.
There's no right way to do anything.
Right.
It's just the way that's right for you.
So we're casual and approachable with great food, now great pizza at Uptown Social. We were making pizza with Falco in his Williamsburg apartment in New York City. It was so in Brooklyn. It was so fucking cool. So there I am stretching fresh mozz in Falco's 2-bedroom apartment while he's letting the dough rest.
Yeah.
It's like all shit that I've learned in the last 5 years, 6 years.
Proofing process.
Yeah, proofing process. Gosh, I mean, I do know about this, Eric. Totally drew a blank. But yes, proofing process and watching dough rest and stretchy mozz. And like that's how this thing originated. And we did a pop-up at Hair of the Dog with no pizza ovens. He brought in a pizza stone, and Falco's like literally on his knees because they're like two little tiny ovens at Hair of the Dog where he's baking off 100 pies at Hair of the Dog with us.
Wow.
And that was our first crack at making bar pies.
Nice.
And the rest is history. I mean, the pizza at Uptown Social, you had it the other night.
Yeah,
it's New York, New Jersey quality pie.
Yeah.
And now that I have my own pizza at my own restaurant in Charleston and my own Taylor ham, egg and cheese and bacon, egg and cheese, I'm like, man, now I can die in peace.
Yeah,
like
you brought New York to Charleston.
Yeah,
You're
totally,
home.
totally.
You get the best of both worlds. So, what has the evolution been for you? Because I mean, or up to this point, were there any like curveballs, any things that you didn't see coming that you wish you had the foresight that maybe you can provide that foresight to somebody else who might be trying to do something similar to what you?
Yeah, we were vastly underprepared and vastly understaffed for the scope and scale of this operation here.
I mean, are you ever fully prepared? I feel like
we were better prepared when we opened Share House and Bodega, but I took a formula that worked in New York City at a 2,500 square foot bar on the Lower East Side, and tried my best to replicate that at a place 4 times the size. I mean, the kitchen alone downstairs is 1,200 square feet.
Wow.
And I just didn't know how to staff it. I didn't know how to. I tried.
Yeah.
I tried to, but I had no clue. And when we opened, Eric, we had 8 bartenders, 3 partners, 5 servers, and 6 barbacks. 6 to 8 weeks later, we had 20 bartenders, 3 partners, 4 managers, 12 servers, and 14 barbacks.
So practically doubled.
Yeah.
Yeah. And is it just the sheer like overwhelming?
Yeah, I mean,
success,
there's
or, like,
we opened. Here's a funny story. We opened for friends and family here.
Yeah.
5 years ago exactly. We don't have friends and family in Charleston.
Yeah.
5
Unless
years
you
ago.
flew them out, right?
Yeah, and a few people came down.
Yeah.
But like you could have 75 people in one of our bars in New York, and it looks relatively full.
Yeah.
You have 75 people at Uptown Social, there's 4 bars on 2 floors.
Yeah.
Doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You can't get people reps.
Yeah.
The other thing that we did in New York when we would open places is we would send people to our other bars to train to get that kind of experience with our POS systems, our other systems, our processes, our culture, and get thrown into the weeds on a busy night. Here, we didn't have that.
Yeah.
So it's our first friends and family night, Thursday, April 3rd, 2018, and we're like, shit, we're not getting the reps.
Yeah.
We have no idea how to get the reps. Let's just open the door and see what happens. And
well, that's an approach a lot of people take. I like that approach of not promoting your opening, but just opening the door and letting people kind of slowly trickle in.
Yep.
And word of mouth, eventually, it's a smooth, steady acceleration. But was that not the case here?
So what I had done and made a priority, we had talked about the lack of social media when we opened Hair of the Dog. Well, now it's 2018, and everybody has Instagram.
Yeah.
And Kara Graves and I, Kara is my business partner who currently runs Uptown Social. Really cool story about Kara. Kara's dad was an NYPD warrant squad detective in New York City. He had 33 years. He just retired. Kara's dad was my regular I talked about regulars and building business. Yeah. Kara's dad was my regular at the Stumble Inn when I started bartending in 2008. Kara's dad and all of his, all the guys in his squad would come in after work and have burgers and beers and whatever. Anyway, Kara's dad, 4 years into him coming in, says, my daughter just graduated college. She's working in marketing. She bartends part-time in Montauk. I mean, real New York guy. He's from City Island, the Bronx. And he says, can you give my daughter a look? And I say to myself, fuck. These guys are my guys. Like,
yeah, you got to make it.
You got guys, right?
Yeah.
You got NYPD warrant squad guys, like the toughest of the tough dudes, right? But they're all my boys now. I'm playing golf with them. Like, I'm going out for beers. We're going to Carmine's for big Italian dinners, and like, I'm thinking to myself, if I don't hire this girl, I'm an asshole. If I hire her and then I have to fire her at some point, I'm even a bigger asshole. So I need to figure out a way to get out of this. Anyway, I interview her and I hire her within 10 seconds. 6 months later, Kara opens Hair of the Dog with me, and 5 years after that, Kara moves to Charleston with me as a partner.
Nice.
5 years later, Kara is the managing partner of Uptown Social and our director of marketing.
Yeah.
So Kara and I decided very early on that we needed social media to be the engine that would get people into Uptown Social. Very funny. We can point to her right now, but she's taking it. Yeah, I'm literally just talking about you right now.
As you were talking about, she was standing over there taking photos.
Yeah,
like, who's this lady?
Right, that's Kara right there. So so Kara and I made it a priority of ours to let the social media tell our story, right? And so right from the minute we signed the lease, we started an Uptown social media account. And also part of the process when we named Uptown Social is what can we do with the brand, right? You know, at this point, everybody's doing all this.
Social as fuck is what you
social as fuck, right? So we have these Social AF shirts that we came out with as our first ever shirt. And the funniest thing was that my dad would wear his Social AF shirt in his nursing home when he was diagnosed with ALS, and all of like the nurses and aides would be like, Bob, that is the coolest shirt. We need one. And he called me one day and he said, Keith, I need 10 Social AF shirts, but I have a question for you. What does that mean? My dad was 70 at the time. I said, Dad, social as fuck. And he goes, oh my God, that's awesome. That is awesome. So, so Kara and I decide that we need to come up with a name that's going to be easy for us to market. And then once we come up with the name Uptown Social, let's figure out how to tell the story before Uptown Social even opens.
What makes Uptown Social easy to market? How do you make a brand that's easy to market?
So, first of all, you need to spend countless hours, days, months building out what it means, right? And what you can do with the tongue-in-cheek. So when we built this place out, we said, okay, Social AF, right? That's fun. That's tongue-in-cheek. People want to wear that on a T-shirt, right? We have this wall on the roof. What do we want to do with a wall on the roof, right? We say, this we just built, like this wall right here we built about 3 or 4 months ago. The wall across from us existed. It was a big gray slab. Yeah. And we said, well, cool. And it just came to us one day. Let's put a social butterfly up there. Yeah. That works. Okay, great. Then we have a huge staircase. Let's throw social climbers. So up on that staircase. on the staircase and make a T-shirt that says social climbing. Uptown, Billy Joel, Uptown Girl. Okay, let's put make a T-shirt that says Uptown Girls. And
so you're just having fun.
And we're just having fun with
Yeah.
it, right? We're not taking ourselves too seriously. We're not that type of brand.
You're thinking about what you want to do and you reverse engineer it with a name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's what we've done, Share House, sharing is caring,
Yeah.
House Party, things along those lines, right? And that's what we will do forever now. Everything needs to give us creative ability to just do whatever we want with the name of the spot, right?
Is your approach to marketing then the same now?
It has grown times a million.
How has it evolved? And what are the biggest evolutions in your approach to marketing that have had the biggest impact in actually driving people in?
So I think you talked about someone in Austin who has used their brand as a marketing engine.
Yeah.
We look at ourselves, we look at Uptown Hospitality Group as a marketing agency that uses our bars and restaurants as our engine to get people in the door, right? And so here we are. You walked in today. You saw a merch rack. That's the first thing you see when you walk in. The merch rack doesn't have one T-shirt or one hat. It has 3 different sweatshirts, 7 different T-shirts, and 6 different hats.
I mean, I have to say it works because I bought a sweatshirt when I was at Bottega.
Awesome. Great. And that's what we're doing, right?
Yeah.
And so the first thing you see when you walk in the door is merch, right?
Yeah.
We're a tourist town. What do people want to do?
They want a souvenir.
They want a souvenir. Every single town I go to, I grab a T-shirt or a hoodie or a hat.
Me too.
My wife has told me that I need to trade in every hat I bring home. I need to throw a hat out.
I have a whole closet full of T-shirts and hats.
It's awesome,
It's so
right?
much fun. I
Yet,
love it. It's my souvenir closet.
you wear your Restaurant Unstoppable hat, and I wear my Share House hat.
Well,
It's like
gotta be on brand.
right. So, the merch is the first thing you see.
Yeah.
Previous to that, we had like a merch display, but we're 10,000 square feet. Who's going to see that, right?
Yeah.
So the merch is a huge part of what we do. Walking around and looking at all kind of the decor on our walls. If you see that piece when you walk past the merch, you see what we call our VIP area, because it's just this little elevated area where folks can hang out on the weekends, where we'll do like private service up there. We have, I think, 30 blown up high res pictures up there, and it's like that the diner that we used to go to when we were kids, and you see your face on the wall, right, eating a cheeseburger or like a plate of eggs or whatever, right? And it gives that local feel. That's what we've done with that wall. And so people come in and they take pictures of the pictures.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
That's
and then you walk toward the bathrooms and you see like 6 or 7 archived events that we have framed on the walls.
I kind of want to go deeper into the events. Like, what's that process of establishing and setting up an event, the step-by-step? Like,
Sure.
Like, how do you guys approach that?
Yeah, so we I talk about Kara and I running our social media, starting 6 years ago, a year before we even opened Uptown Social. Eric, we now have a meeting weekly with our social media marketing team, which is 12 people sitting at that table. And
also super badass that you opened with a marketing person on staff.
Yeah.
Like, it is like to have a partner whose lane it is marketing.
Yeah.
Awesome. Does she invest just like everybody else?
Yeah, Kara is a majority partner here in Charleston. She now has skin in the game in New York as well, and she and I are doing much of the brand overhaul and marketing refresh in our New York locations.
Nice.
And it's been really fun for us to go up there and have a huge part in what we're doing in terms of changing the game up there, because in New York, we just kind of rested on our laurels and doing it the same way for 25, 30 years. And we weren't quite up to snuff on the social media marketing game up there. And we've had to really kind of specifically mid to post-pandemic reinvent ourselves.
Right.
And Kara and I, from 755 miles away, have been at the helm. And it's been really fun for us to do that with our partners up there. But it's a full-time job for us. My job now, when we opened Uptown Social, my job was the founder, the operator, the guy who was working the door on the busy nights, ordering the beer, handling the scheduling, dealing with the hiring and the firing, and working hand in hand with Kara on brand expansion, brand enhancement, and everything that we were doing from a social media and marketing and event programming perspective.
Right. I mean, sorry, do you have more to say?
Yeah,
Keep going, man. You're making my job easier.
How that event piece has expanded. We now have a girl named Danny who handles all of our in-house event programming. Now, that's not to be confused with our private events, which we have an event team who handles weddings and rehearsal dinners and corporate events. That's totally separate. This is in-house events. So to put in perspective and give you an example, we have an event called the Spring Fling coming up. The Spring Fling is taking place outside of Share House and Bodega. We did something similar in the fall called Oktoberfest. We partnered with Boston Beer, who sponsored that event for us, and it was just an unbelievable event in which we pulled a permit for that big straightaway outside Bodega, and we had approximately 1,000 to 1,500 people come throughout the day with live music and DJs, and it was awesome. We have since partnered with a group called The Drifter, which is the best event production team in, I would say, the state of South Carolina, if not Charleston.
Okay.
But it was certainly Charleston, if not the state.
Yeah.
They are handling a $25,000 production budget for us for Spring Fling, in which we are programming with Midnight City, who's the best cover band I've ever seen, who just happens to be based here in Charleston. DJ Sparkbox and Andrew Paul, who plays the trumpet to the DJ music, which is really, really cool. And so we'll go DJ, trumpet into live band with 5 points of service in terms of bar service, and then the Drifter also handles the catering, and so they're gonna set up a street fair for us where we fully brand it out with hot dogs and street tacos and a sweets station, and set it up so that it's a street fair meets music festival.
This hasn't happened.
This hasn't happened. This happened on May 7th.
Nice.
Yeah, but this is a massive event for us, and we have events of all different scales. Kara just hosted a women's crush Wednesday where we raised money for a local women-based charity.
Was Randy a part of that?
Randy was not.
Oh, really?
And Randy, Randy has all of her own stuff that's going on, and Fab is about to take place, and we're a big sponsor of Fab, but Kara has been to many Fab events, but we had several entrepreneurs and women, female business owners here in Charleston, and then we donated, a good chunk of change to that. And so
a little shout out to Randy Weinstein, awesome woman. My first interview when we came to Charleston, and she was the director of something I can't remember.
The Wine and Food Festival.
But there was a specific title. I can't remember. She was
the director of events, I think.
Yeah, for the Wine and Food Festival, Charleston Wine and Food Festival. So she knows Charleston so well, and she's been so generous with her network, helping us find you, connect with you, Keith. So just thank you, Randy, for your generosity.
Randy's become a dear friend. Randy's one of the first people I ever met here in Charleston, and one thing that I will, you've talked about the best way to advise people how to blaze this trail, right? When I moved to Charleston, Eric, I spent 5 months here before we even opened our doors. And my only job, and I spent 10, 12 hours a day meeting everybody I could meet. Everybody.
What was your strategy behind that?
Eat a piece of humble pie. Don't talk about New York. Talk about whatever that person wants to talk about, and just learn.
First seek to understand, then seek to be understood.
Exactly.
So what happens when you're doing that?
So I'm blindly reaching out to people via email or text saying, hey, my name is Keith. You may or may not have heard we're opening a new restaurant bar on King Street, and I would humbly like to catch your ear and ask advice as to how to best do business in Charleston and best navigate the waters.
Did you meet Mickey?
I met Mickey.
Yeah.
I met Mickey. Mickey was one of the several... I probably met 100 people over 5 months.
Was he still at the Charleston Grill at
Yep.
this point?
Yep. I met Mickey.
That guy's a badass.
And Mickey talked about sobriety, I'm sure, right?
Yep.
When you guys spoke. Mickey came to us. Well, first of all, my first experience with Mickey was a partner dinner at the Charleston Grill. And we sat at Mickey's, we sat at a table. And Mickey not only doubled as the concierge, the GM, the host, but also the som.
Yeah.
When was the last time Mickey had a drink? I can't remember.
I almost asked him if he drinks wine.
He does not.
If he tastes it.
Nope.
To be a som and not know what you're tasting.
So Mickey,
just to commit that all to memory.
It's unbelievable.
I meant to ask him. You reminded me now because I was curious.
I don't think he drinks and spits. I don't think he does that. I don't want to speak for Mickey, but Mickey talked about wine that night in a way that most Psalms I've ever spoken to don't speak about wine. And he made me want to love wine.
Right.
I'm not a wine guy. I like to drink it, but I would never pretend to be a wine guy.
Yeah.
And I walked out of there being like, first of all, I want to know more about that guy.
Yeah.
Second of all, I want to know more about wine. I mean,
Right.
that guy, the way Mickey is known as the godfather of Charleston hospitality.
Yeah.
So back to Randy. Randy was one of
Also the mayor of Charleston. He's
also
got a lot of
he
nicknames.
does, and he looks out for the people who are facing.
And that's why he's got so many nicknames, because
Yeah.
he cares a lot
Yep,
about
yep.
this town.
And so Randy's one of the first people I met, and Randy has helped me navigate Charleston in a remarkable way. But also one thing that I want to give Randy a shout out is that she gave me a seat at her Passover table when I moved to Charleston, and it's a special thing. I grew up in a Jewish home. I grew up celebrating Passover, and I moved to a town, and I was bar mitzvahed, and I don't go to synagogue still. It's not something that I'm overly committed to from a religious standpoint, but from a cultural and traditional standpoint, Judaism will always be a part of my life and my children's life. My wife's Catholic, and we just want to bring it all together.
Yeah.
But Randy gave me a seat at her Passover table, and it has invited me every year since with the pandemic as the one as the one.
And that's one
Pause.
That's definitely one underlying factor of my time spent here in Charleston is, it seems like the community really started to come together around the time that Mickey came to Charleston. I think it was
Sure.
2014-ish,
Yeah.
or maybe sooner than that. I can't
Mickey's
remember.
been here many more years.
Maybe it was
but yes.
earlier 2000s, but just this idea of just camaraderie and coming together and supporting one another and doing what you did. If you're new to a city, if you're the newcomer, don't be shy. Don't shy away from the other owners in that community. Embrace them. And all you can do is that hope is that they reciprocate, but they absolutely won't if you don't extend the olive branch first, right?
And I've paid it forward. I
Yeah.
mean, I had all of these people open these doors for me, and I
Yeah.
have since paid it forward in every possible way. And it's this is a remarkable community. The industry in itself is always that way,
Yeah.
but I think some towns and cities are different than
Yeah.
others. Charleston is a special place, and I've since joined. I sit on two boards now, Eric. One is the Low Country Hospitality Association, in which it's 6 hoteliers and 6 restaurant owners, and we just talk about the issues that frankly are challenges to the
Yeah.
industry. And
I want to talk about that before we wrap up today's conversation, because I do like to end there with
Sure.
what are the challenges, how are you overcoming those
Yeah.
challenges, how are you moving into the future. One thing I'm curious about is, post-pandemic. I don't like talking about the pandemic
Sure.
because it's the same story.
Yeah.
It was horrible. You had to pivot. You had to adapt. What I am curious about is how have you evolved since the pandemic?
Sure.
What stuck? How are you different and better today?
Yeah.
Like, what does the business look like today post-pandemic?
So I want to touch on one more
Please.
thing, and then I'm going to get to that. But I also sit on the Charleston Wine and Food Board, and I was asked to join that last summer. And I said to my wife, I don't want to do it. And she said, why? And I said, well, because I'm already on the LHA board. I now own and operate 3 restaurants in Charleston. We want to continue to grow. We have 1 kid and another one on the way. And I don't know, Stevie. My wife's name's Stevie. And she said, Keith, do you love Charleston? I said, yeah. She said, do you love the industry you work in? I said, yeah. She goes, do you love the Wine and Food Festival? I said, yeah. She goes, join the board. I said, okay. And since I've joined the board, I've had a meaningful impact in a way that I never would have been able to before. And it's a phenomenal festival. Randy, I'm sure, spoke about it. I'm sure it just concluded. And I'm so honored to be a part of it and contribute in a way that you can't contribute if you don't have your hands in the festival.
Yeah.
Anyway, I just wanted to touch on that.
I'm sure it's led to opportunities.
And beyond that, it's just once again giving back.
Yeah.
Giving back. So that post-pandemic world, Eric, Charleston was a bizarre beneficiary of the pandemic.
A lot of people came here.
What I mean by that is that regardless of politics, the governor of the state of South Carolina opened restaurants on, I believe, May 4th, 2020 for outdoor dining. It was only a week later that he opened restaurants to 50% dining inside. And only shortly after that he opened restaurants fully and advised folks to keep their social distancing, right? I'm not here to judge what people did during the pandemic. All I can say is that we were given the opportunity to operate and operate at relative full capacity. right? We have outdoor space. The city of Charleston also gave us the ability to secure more outdoor space in our parking lot. So we opened a 92-seat cafe during the pandemic, which no longer exists because of zoning and post-pandemic stuff. But so now we have 92 more seats, outdoor dining, rooftop, and call it by June 1st, 2020, Charleston was booming. It was the state of South Carolina, the state of Florida, and not many more places that were given the opportunity to operate.
Yeah.
And what it did for us, Eric, is it gave us the confidence to sign another lease. And so enter Sharehouse Bodega. We signed another lease for just under 9,000 square feet and decided to open another bar restaurant, Sharehouse, which is a coastal cantina, much different menu than Uptown Social. But we blew out the entire side of the building. We put in these beautiful garage doors. You just saw the building, but the building split up by the kitchen.
Yeah.
And we said we don't want to do Sharehouse kind of chopped up with two parts and then a kitchen and then a third room. So we said, what is Charleston missing? It's missing breakfast sandwiches. You know, tons of biscuits, tons of grits. But where's that round roll New York style breakfast sandwich?
Yeah.
Enter Bodega. So we popped up Bodega out of Uptown Social during the pandemic and teased it. And this is where that marketing component comes in.
And that's one thing I wanted to touch on. I had it written down, this idea of popping up a concept before committing to it.
Sure.
And testing proof of concept.
Yep.
Take us through that process.
Not everyone can do it.
What do you have to do to do it?
You have to work really hard. We okay with that?
I'm just making sure.
Yeah. You have to work really, really hard because you don't have your own kitchen. You don't have your own commissary. You don't have your own prep space. You don't have storage. You don't have anything that you need. Pop-ups are incredibly hard work. And then what you need to do is you need to ask somebody else to give them your kitchen for the most part, right?
Yeah.
For us, it was, okay, we have a 10,000 square foot restaurant, sports bar, that isn't really being used to its max potential with lots of folks that don't feel comfortable dining inside right now.
Yeah.
So let's roll the dice and use our kitchen for a breakfast and lunch concept 3 days a week during the pandemic.
Because you're not open during the morning.
We're not open during the morning. So we have this 1,200 square foot kitchen that's just sitting there empty, right?
Yeah.
Plus, at the same time, Eric, we wanted to put people to work.
Yeah.
Right? So I have all these cooks that can't get enough shifts because we're not quite back yet. But we could teach them how to make this breakfast food and lean into that, and now we can create more work.
Yeah.
And it took off. We were selling, 300 to 400 sandwiches a day
During the pop-up.
During the pop-up,
Wow.
Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Proof of concept.
How did you promote it?
Instagram. And so you just bought a Bodega sweatshirt.
Yeah.
That logo is so sweet, isn't it?
It's a gnarly.
It's
logo,
a
man.
gnarly logo.
Yeah, I like the colors too.
Yeah.
I mean, it pulled me in. I was
Yeah,
like, I want
and
that.
so
I spent $60 for it. I wanted that.
right, right. I
Yeah.
mean, it's
Yeah.
but that's people will pay that because the cost to us. That's a great quality sweatshirt with a 7
And
color.
that matters to me.
Yeah, with a 7 color print. I mean, it costs us a ton of money to.
These shirts aren't cheap either.
Yeah, it's like the fashion shirt, right?
Yeah. Well, the point you're trying to make is don't buy shit.
Right.
People will spend the extra $15
Yeah.
to get a quality product they're actually gonna wear.
Right. Right.
And just get it in this is garbage material.
And I don't want it to look like a bar tee, right,
Yeah.
or a bar sweatshirt. I
Yeah.
want it to look like they bought it at a American Apparel or
Yeah.
a J. Crew or whatever, So the Bodega logo is killer. We now use 3 graphic designers, and we just put one on salary full time.
Wow.
My very close friend Sam Griffin has handled the branding for Bodega, Sharehouse, just did a rebrand for Uptown Social. He did the branding for Downtown Social, and he rebranded every single one of our bars in New York as of late. Sam handled the Bodega branding, and it speaks for itself. We launched an Instagram. We piggybacked it off of our successful Uptown Social Instagram.
How do you piggyback an account? What does that look like?
So at this point at Uptown, mid-pandemic, we probably had 12, 13, 14,000 followers.
Yeah.
You got a captive audience, right?
So you literally just embed the brand right into the
Yeah, we say, oh, you love Uptown? You love the food at Uptown? You love the people at Uptown? You love the party at Uptown? Hey, by the people behind Uptown Social, we now have Bodega.
Yeah.
Look how cool this is, right? And then what we did alongside of the branding and the logo is we made these sandwiches Instagrammable, right? And so when you got your sandwich today, you got it with branded wrap, right? You go to a New York style bodega, it always comes wrapped. Now it doesn't come wrapped in a branded paper because they're just corner stores selling toilet paper, tampons, and breakfast sandwiches, right? You go to our bodega and you're getting coffee in a really sweet cup that has, a map and branding all over it of Charleston and our spots, landmarks. And then you get your sandwich wrapped. And when you open that sandwich, I mean, we've all seen it, whether it's My Sandwich Shop or...
Oh, we did it.
You did it today, right?
We did it.
You crack it open and you go, holy shit, that's awesome, right? You snap the picture, you tag Bodega. You're doing the work for us, Eric.
So you're creating a path of least resistance to sharing.
Correct.
How can we make this something that's so easy to share?
Right. And what we did right off the rip was we started taking pictures of our sandwiches all over Charleston. So we would go to the Pineapple Fountain. We would go to the Battery. We would go to...
You got to answer something for me.
Yeah.
Did the pineapple logo for hospitality start in Charleston?
I can't answer that question. I don't know.
I've been seeing pineapples everywhere, and I know it's a southern thing.
Yeah.
So I was like, did it start here? Like little subtle, like, I don't know. We're walking
I don't
around,
know.
kept on seeing pineapples.
But, I mean, it's a great question.
Yeah.
It's all over the place.
I know it started in the South and had something to do with, like, communicating that you're open.
It's a part of our Low Country Hospitality logo, but I've never even thought to ask
that.
Part
of my logo.
Yeah.
You can't see it right here.
Yeah.
It's on my back.
Yeah, it's great.
Yep.
It's not on your hat. That's the... Yep, there you go. Yep, I got it.
Oh, it's right here. That's what I'm talking about.
Sweet. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Anyway, I digress.
Yeah, so now we have the cool Bodega logo. We have the sandwiches that we're taking pictures of everywhere, and then people just start coming Uptown Social and taking pictures, doing the work for us, right? Yeah. And then it becomes what we like to say, viral, right?
Man. I'm looking at the time, dude. We're already in an hour and 40 minutes of recording
awesome.
time.
This has been so much fun.
So fast, man. One thing I do want to talk about before we wrap up, and it's along this idea of partnerships, right? Yep. We had the pleasure of meeting your manager downstairs, the guy with basketballs on the shoulders. You know what I'm talking about?
Brett Wilson. Yeah,
he's an awesome guy.
Sure.
Partner. He started as a bouncer.
Yep.
He went from bouncer to bar back, bartender, 6 months, partner.
Manager, partner.
Partner.
Yep.
Sounds kind of familiar.
Yeah, it's pretty awesome, right?
Right.
Yeah. So when I started with the company, I was given the opportunity. When I came down here to Charleston, we had 3 partners with us. We now have 13 of us in Charleston. Wow. 13 of us. I'm the oldest partner in Charleston. I'm 40 years old. Our youngest partner is Brett, who's 24 or 25. Yeah. It's an unbelievable culture. It's an unbelievable group of people we have here, Eric. And I truly believe in the mantra, to whom much is given, much is expected, right? Yeah. And so these folks, they work really hard. They bust their butts. They see that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, that they're not working for me. They're not working for Kara. They're not working for Mitch or Michael. They're understanding that they can earn their own living and earn their way to being a part of this partnership. And then they invest, right? And then they see, well, Keith came to Charleston. He did it his way. Well, maybe if I get on an airplane to Tampa or Nashville or Austin and do what Keith did, I can create that opportunity for myself. And I already have some of these junior partners doing that. Yeah. They also work their tails off. And they do it because they genuinely care, but they do it because they're making money, right?
Yeah, and you give them an opportunity.
And we give them an opportunity. Yeah. But once they become a partner, I have a talk. And I say, congratulations. Give me all your money. Yeah. But most importantly, Brett, or someone like Brett, it's time to take it up a notch. You got here because of how hard you've worked. But now, to whom much is given, much is expected. And granted, you're invested your money, but I expect more of you now. Yeah. And I expect you to take it to the next level. And they all perform. Yeah. And we've had a track record here that's just been that I'm tremendously proud of.
I just wanted to highlight that full circle.
Sure.
And, that's how you got in. Somebody took a chance on you, and you're paying it forward, man. And I love that business model. And I think you definitely, there's a mindset of abundance here that's obvious, that there's the more we come together, the better, the further we can go. Mm-hmm. And I just think that's really special.
Sure.
I want to make an example of that.
I appreciate that.
Before we wrap up, I think you started talking about the things you guys talk about during this board that you're on, where you get together, you talk about the future, where the city is, where you're going.
Sure.
Like where are we going? The mission statement is to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. Definitely inspired us with your story, empowered us with your knowledge. Around this note of transformation, how do we move into the future better? Is that a part of the conversation?
Yeah, it is, and we talk about it all the time. I mean, at the end of the day, Eric, whether you're 10,000 square feet or you're Hotel Bennett on King Street, which is a massive, gorgeous hotel, we're all small businesses.
Yeah.
We just are, and we have limited resources. Certainly the Hyatt or Marriott or, Houlihan's or whatever. I mean, those guys have unlimited resources, it seems, with tremendous amount of capital, but we're all out of pocket. We're mom and pop. We really are.
Yeah.
And so when that happens that way, there's obstacles that we have to deal with, and we need to make sure that we're sensitive to what our costs are, sensitive to what the supply chain issues are, sensitive to what the staffing shortages look like, and just overly sensitive to managing our books, right? And whether, the reason I'm here, Eric, in Charleston, South Carolina, is because we're given more opportunities to do business the way we need to do them versus a state like New York or a city like New York City. There's just more regulation. Your hands are tied, and it's more difficult to earn a living, right? Yeah. This is a pro small business state. It is, and I think that it's given us the opportunity to have success here and given us a reason to want to grow more. Yeah. And, we started with Uptown Social. We now have 3 concepts. We're about to open another bodega. We have other irons in the fire, but it's going to be down south.
So these conversations you're having when you get together with these other business owners,
sure,
and you're sharing, what is it? Are you guys sharing knowledge? Are you talking about? Are you doing open book? Are you sharing?
Yeah, we're sharing challenges that we're facing. Mostly, I mean, the staffing shortage just everywhere is taking the cake. There's liquor liability laws that are on the books that are antiquated. So this gives us access through different relationships with different lobbying groups and local and state politicians to have discussions, meaningful discussions in which we can create change.
What's the change you're lobbying for?
So honestly, it's really difficult to get insurance now. Yeah. And I'm sure you've heard that from a lot of folks. Yeah. And so we're just looking for more help from the state. We're looking for, there's dram shop laws that are a big concern where, I don't know if you're familiar with dram shop, but if you, let's say you
have a drink at your place and I get in a car accident.
If you have a drink at noon at Uptown Social, and then you have a beer at Uptown Social and French fries, and then you get in a car accident at midnight.
Yeah.
Uptown Social's on the hook.
Yeah.
Uptown Social's on the hook. So it's a law that goes back probably 100 years that, people just don't look at unless you push them to look at it, right?
Right.
Have you seen House of Cards?
Yes. A while ago.
Same. Yeah. But oftentimes I feel like a whip, right? I'm going to talk to people about governmental issues instead of managing my door on a Friday night, right? And my role, both with the Low Country Hospitality Association and the Wine and Food Festival, is creating these meaningful relationships with folks that can make a difference. And I will tell you that there's a group in Charleston called Explore Charleston. Maybe you've heard about it, maybe you haven't, but it's run by the only executive director that it has ever had, a woman by the name of Helen Hill. And Helen is the most pro-tourism, pro-small business, pro-local Charleston person you will ever find on this planet. Helen is best friends with the governor, whoever the governor might be. Helen is best friends with the local government.
So you're talking about Mickey, right?
Same. They run in the same circles.
Yeah.
But Helen is the best advocate for this industry I could ever imagine. And she's become a dear friend and a mentor and really speaks to this industry as if it's the lifeblood of this town, which it is. Yeah. And to work with her, the LHA board falls under Explore Charleston, and to work with Helen and her team to better the Charleston restaurant community is an opportunity that I will not take lightly.
Yeah. So the mission statement, I'm going to echo it one more time: to inspire, empower, and transform the industry. Behind every great restaurant's great people. So how have you personally transformed over time? Who is Keith today versus Keith getting started in this industry?
Yeah, Keith getting started was a post-college bar back who was grinding to earn a buck, right?
Yeah.
And give myself opportunity to take that next step, whatever that next step is. Keith in 2023 is a patient, well-rested at times, and I say that because I was working nights and weekends, and now I primarily work days, and people like Brett and Kara and the other folks handle the weekends, thank goodness, because I just couldn't do it all.
Yeah.
So well-rested in that respect. Having 2 kids under 2 doesn't give me too much sleep, but more patient, more understanding, and a better listener. Yeah. I was pretty arrogant in every way, and cocky in my 20s. I was, I think, arrogant and confident in my approach to opening in Charleston. This is the way we're going to do it. And then I got my teeth kicked in because, I didn't staff correctly, and it was really a tremendous lesson learned. And now I've surrounded myself with my partners and people that are so unbelievably well qualified to be in the seats that they're in, that they teach me every day.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm not only listening to the people around me, but there's something that you ask, kind of what's your favorite book? What do you like to read? Right. What inspires you?
Yeah, it's gonna be coming.
I'm not a reader, believe it or not.
Yeah.
I don't read. And I never have. I don't have the patience for it. I'm an ADHD guy. I always have been, and I'll read 2 pages, and I want to go to page 300 and see what happens.
What happens then?
So I don't have. So I watch movies, and I spend an ungodly amount of time reading news articles and on social media, more than my wife would like. But I get my inspo from looking at what other operators and other concepts are doing around the country and around the world, and everything that I do is with the mindset of how can I bring this into my space.
You're gonna start listening to the Restaurant Unstoppable podcast,
Well,
man. That's what it's all about.
I will be a listener now.
No reading required.
You've got me committed, but that's just the truth. And so, whether it's me or Kara or any one of our partners, we call it vacay inspo, right? Yeah. And we make fun of each other, right? Yeah. And I say, let's not spam each other through our vacation, right?
Yeah.
Make a note, take pictures, and let's see how we can then fold that into what we're doing. But, I'll tell you that we went to a bar in Chicago called Paradise Park.
Yeah.
Really cool bar. I think it's in Wicker Park. And Kara and I immediately started following their Instagram, and they do something called Arts and Crafts. So they have crafts of wine or whatever that might be. And we're like, that's brilliant. Yeah. That's in Chicago. We're bringing that to Charleston, and that's just like one example of something. Getting inspiration. And if you had a Bloody Mary at Bodega, we have these really cool 16-ounce beer glasses shaped like a beer can. Yeah. And I saw one of those tagged at a bar in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And within a week, I had a mock-up of that same glass for the Bodega Bloody, designed by my buddy Sam, and partnered with Deep Eddy Vodka, and now we have those Bodega Bloody glasses, and people buy them from us.
Yeah.
I mean,
I would love to get you back on the show, man.
Cool, man.
Yeah, because this was a lot of fun. I think you have a lot of little lessons around collaboration and partnering that I'd love to learn more about. I wasn't able to get that today. We have to go to the speed round to respect your time. We're back. The first question I have for you is, what is your it factor? A habit, a trait, a characteristic you believe most contributes to your success?
Tenacity.
What is your biggest weakness?
Patience.
What is one question you ask or thing you look for when you grow on your team?
Well-rounded. Is this person well-rounded?
What is your biggest challenge today?
Staffing.
How are you overcoming it?
Creativity. Constantly pushing our team to hire people that are green and molding them into what we need them to be.
I love it. Share one code of conduct or behavior you teach your team, a core value, a way to be.
Professionalism. I mean, this is oftentimes confused as a playground. The restaurant industry can pull you in a lot of different directions, and especially with nightlife. And I always tell people this is a job. Treat it as a job.
Yeah. What is one uncommon standard of service? A way to go above and beyond guest expectation?
We love to push the buyback harder than anybody in our industry. And we're in a tourism town, and oftentimes that's frowned upon by an operator, right? Because you say we have this audience that's here to spend money. The buyback. So buying somebody a drink or an appetizer or a dessert and saying, hey, thanks for coming in Friday night. Why don't you come back Saturday morning to Bodega, or come Saturday night to Share House, or Sunday for Sunday Fun Day back at Uptown Social. The buyback.
Yeah, I love it. This is where I would ask about the book. You already answered that question, so we'll skip it. What is one thing you feel restaurateurs don't do well enough or often enough?
I don't think that restaurateurs look around enough, right? And I think that that's what's given us the creative ingenuity that we have. I'm always, like I just said, I'm always on Instagram. I'm always looking at TikTok through Kara and the girls. I'm not too savvy with it right now. And I just have my eye on everybody else, whether it's in Charleston or New York or LA or what have you. I mean, I was in LA, not to digress, but I was in LA. My brother lives in Sherman Oaks, California. And I showed him, a couple pictures of this spot here in Charleston that I love. And he said, well, there's a place just like it here in LA and I want to take you. And I took a few pictures and I'm always looking for that. Actually, I'm really curious about this question because you just came back from the Bar Expo, and I was curious about that.
What is one piece of technology you've recently adopted in the four walls of your business that's had a huge impact on communication, efficiency, profitability, anything along those lines? And did you discover anything new over this past week?
I'm going to give you two pieces of technology. One is a company that we have partnered with called BeatGig.
Okay.
We book hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of acts. And when I say acts, I mean bands and DJs throughout the course of a year between Share House, Bodega, and Uptown Social. And I got to the point where I couldn't do it myself or source the entertainment. BeatGig does that for us. So you go on to BeatGig, you enter country band, 3 hours, Saturday night, 9 to 12, April 25th.
Gig economy.
And it pumps out 5 different bands, and then you hit confirm, and it takes your money right after the show. It pulls the money out on an ACH payment, and it's absolutely brilliant. And the guy, Connor Feroce, is one of the founders. He's become a good friend, and they're doing good work. The other one's a company called Line Leap, which is awesome because we have really long lines at our bars. And it's a platform to skip the line, right? You don't want to wait on line. You pay Line Leap. Line Leap takes a small cut.
Yeah.
We take the rest. It's all done via app.
Yeah.
You show the pass to the doorman and the manager at the door. You cut the line and you walk right in.
Nice.
It's awesome.
Cool.
And then
that one I'm interested in following. For sure.
They're both great, and they're both doing great work. And then the bar nightlife show. We're always looking at new POS systems. We're not a fan of NCR.
You're using NCR now.
We are using NCR, and so we're looking specifically for Bodega. We like Toast, and we're learning more about that. And we saw a few more out there that we like.
Nice. Yeah. Awesome. This has been a lot of fun. This is the last question. It's a doozy. Keep your ears open. If you got the news, you'd be leaving this world tomorrow. All the memories of you, your work, and your restaurants will be lost with your departure. With the exception of 3 pieces of wisdom you could leave behind for the good of humanity and your legacy, what would those 3 pieces of wisdom be?
Be kind, pay it forward, and be generous.
Beautiful. This has been a lot of fun, Keith. Thank you so much for taking the time to share your story, to inspire people to take a risk and just to ask, what can I do for some equity around here?
Sure.
And hopefully inspiring other owners and operators to spread that love, to what's the word? Have that mindset of abundance.
Sure.
That there's plenty for all of us to go around, and we can go further together. Right?
Yeah. One parting shot. We didn't touch on it, but I just want to thank my dad, who's no longer with us, who was a tremendous inspiration for me, and my best buddy, and my mom, who's currently fighting pancreatic cancer. And my parents allowed me to be me. And so, I have been inspired as a parent to be that dad, and to not put my kids in a box where they can't be who they want to be, because here I am today doing something that's completely unconventional because my parents allowed me to be that person, and I want to thank them for that.
I love it. And we do wrap up every chat by calling somebody out. That's one of the kind of how I found you, through Randy. Who do you respect and admire in the industry? If you found out I got this person or these people on the show, you would become a full-time Restaurant Unstoppable listener.
Mark Hudasco is one of my favorite guys in the industry. He was the GM at Little Jack's when I moved down here, which is just a great burger joint down the street. And Mark had a pop-up called We Flew South during the earlier parts of the pandemic, and he and his wife Liz were looking for a place, and they finally found it, and it's called Berkeley's, and it's inspired by kind of Jersey style. We're both Jersey guys, North Jersey style comfort food. Nice. And Mark and his wife Liz grind hard, and it's the definition of a mom and pop, and I'm just so proud of where they are today, and I think that the sky's the limit for them.
Beautiful. Mark and Liz, look, I'm coming after you. And how can we connect with you if we were totally inspired by your story, just feeling your vibes, maybe thinking about Charleston as a place to live, and we're in the hospitality industry. Sure. Maybe we're interested in some equity someday. You know?
Yeah, totally.
What's the best way to connect?
Yeah, I would just DM. Like I said, I'm an Instagram junkie, for better or for worse, but at KM Benjo, Benjo.
Awesome. I can't remember what episode number this is, so if you're listening, listen to the beginning of the episode, or just look at the title, whatever the episode number is. Head over to restaurantunstoppable.com/that episode number. You'll find a summary of today's discussions, as well as any tools or services that we mentioned, and how to connect with Keith. And also, you'll find our sponsors over there. Please use our links. It really supports the show. Thank you in advance. And Keith, there is no questioning, my man. You are unstoppable.
Thanks, Eric. Appreciate you.
Cheers.
All right, brother.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right. Well done, my man. Woo!